Gentlemen, our cherished friends from the media, I know you've been waiting for long. First of all, thank you very much for responding to our invitation. Since last week, before then, let me do some quick introduction. We don't have much time. We have the Deputy Attorney General in our midst, Mrs. Diana Asonabadapa is here with us. Also, another deputy, my own very good friend, Lawyer Tia is also here with us. Deputy General Secretary Haruna Mohammed is here with us. We have a host of national executive members here. Deputy National Communications Director also here with us. And then very soon I'm going to introduce to you the speaker for today's event. Last week, we heard a lot of spurious allegations, manipulated facts, distorted narrative from the NDC, targeted at the Attorney General. The Attorney General's credibility remains unblemished. He is one of the most hard-working Attorney Generals we've had in this republic. Very intelligent, very smart, and no amount of shenanigans, no amount of evil intention against him will suffice. Now, we have here today the NDC addressed the press where what is believed to be their evidence, the much talked about tape, was released today. Clearly, you could see that it was doctored. It is a manipulated tape. It is a cut and pieced together tape thrown out to create a certain impression. And we are here to respond to these evil-minded persons. Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, let me welcome one of the fine brains in Ghana when it comes to the law. He is the Legal and Constitutional Committee Chairman for the New Patriotic Party. He is also, during the presidential elections in 2020, he was the lead counsel for His Excellency the President. Very astute legal personality to address us today. Please, let's welcome the evergreen lawyer Frank Davis to address us.
I believe it's not going to be evening, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and to borrow the language of His Excellency the President, fellow Ghanaians. I must apologize on behalf of our great party for keeping you waiting. We scheduled the press conference to be for 16 hours precisely. But of course, we had to work on our script and make sure that we crossed our T's and dotted our I's. So, thankfully, you have had the patience to wait for us, and we appreciate. Thank you very much for your tolerance. This is a press conference to address Ghanaians on the desperate act that the main opposition party, NDC, is involved in to shield Forson, an accused person standing trial in our courts, from accountability. It is not in dispute that the justice delivery system is arguably the last bastion of a burgeoning constitutional democracy. And if it is constantly being bastardized by people who ought, in the very least, be responsible and know better, it leaves very much to be desired. We owe it to ourselves and posterity to rescue our dear country from this dark canker by those who have made it their stock in trade to spew vitriol and unapologetically take shots at a system they have little or no faith in at all. We have called you here because the NDC have since last week set in motion a malicious scheme fueled by lies, falsehoods, misrepresentations, blackmail, and needless pollution of the mass media, with the sole intention of obstructing the course of justice and scandalizing the criminal proceedings in the High Court, all in the bid to shield Forson MP, minority leader in Parliament, and former Deputy Minister of Finance, and his associates from taking responsibility for authorizing some payments which resulted in a whopping sum of 3.27 million euros lost by the state, monies that belong to us all as Ghanaians. Ladies and gentlemen, you ask, how did we get here? On 22nd December 2011, Cabinet endorsed an executive approval of a joint memorandum submitted to Cabinet by the then Minister for Health and first accused person Forson, then Deputy Minister for Finance, for the purchase of 200 ambulances out of a medium-term credit facility of 15,800,000 euros between Standard Bank Ghana Limited and the Government of Ghana through the Ministry of Finance. On 1st December 2012, the Parliament of Ghana granted approval for the financing agreement between Standard Bank Ghana Limited and the Government of Ghana for the purchase of the 200 ambulances. By an agreement dated 19 December 2012, the Government of Ghana contracted a company in Dubai known as Big C General Trading LLC. In the course, we just referred to them as Big C, whose local agent is the third accused person, Richard Japa. And the company was to supply the 200 ambulances to the government, even though that company was unknown to the cabinet and parliamentary approvals regarding the transaction. By the terms of the agreement, advance payment for the contract was prohibited. Payment for the vehicles was stated in the agreement to be through letters of credit established for 25% of the contract price upon the delivery of every 50 ambulance vehicles. On 7th August 2014, in blatant disregard of the financing arrangement for the transaction approved by both Cabinet and the Parliament of Ghana, first accused, Forson, authorized the Bank of Ghana to urgently establish the letters of credit for the supply of 15 ambulances amounting to 3,950,000 euros, representing 25% of the contract sum. At this time, it is instructive to state that not a single ambulance had been delivered. On 12 August 2014, first accused also directed the Controller and Accountant General to pay the sums of 806,688 Ghana cedis 75 pesos, representing bank charges covering the establishment of letters of credit for the supply of 50 ambulances, and further directed for the amount to be charged against the capital expenditure vote for the Ministry of Health. Ladies and gentlemen, all these directives by first accused, Forson, were contrary to the agreement for the supply of the ambulances, as well as the parliamentary approval regarding the financing of the transaction. It is also important to note that Forson's authorization of payments for the transaction was without any request from the Ministry of Health. In fact, the Ministry of Health had specifically asked Big C to stop producing the ambulances as there was no valid contract regarding the transaction. In spite of all that, Forson, without cause and for reasons best known to himself, proceeded to authorize payment for the ambulances. Pursuant to the unlawful directives of first accused, Forson, Big C shipped 30 vehicles in 3 consignments between October 2014 and February 2015, which were fundamentally defective and lacking in the basic requirements for an ambulance. In short, they were not fit for purpose. This was confirmed by a letter written by the then Minister for Health, Dr. Ghanacebrities, and other assessments by the National Ambulance Service. In point of fact, Ghanacebrities, in the letter to Big C, described the ambulances as ordinary vans, to wit, trotro. Interestingly, this same himself, Ghanacebrities, was sitting with them in that press conference. These vehicles were never used and could not be used as ambulances during the whole tenure of the John Mahama administration. Following the change in government in 2017, investigations commenced and statements were taken from several people, including the incumbent Speaker of Parliament, Kingsford Bagbin, Mr. Kweku Agyeman-Mensah, Madam Sherry Aite Disease, and Dr. Ghanacebrities, all of whom were former health ministers, as well as first accused Ghanacelepridis Forson and other persons, including the third accused person, Richard Jakpa. Out of these many people, the Attorney General, convinced that the willful act of Ghanacelepridis Forson had resulted in the financial loss of €2,370,000 to the state, charged him before the High Court, together with Sylvester Animana, the former Chief Director of the Ministry of Health, and Richard Jakpa, a businessman, for causing financial loss, abetment to causing financial loss, and misapplying public property. The proceedings before the High Court. Ladies and gentlemen, proceedings in this matter have run its full course since commencement in December 2021. The prosecution, led by the able Attorney General, called 5 witnesses in proof of its case. Lawyers for first accused, in an attempt to truncate the proceedings, filed a submission of no case and urged the court to rule that Ghanacelepridis Forson had no case to answer, as no prima facie case had been made against him. This plea was outrightly rejected by the court, presided over by Justice Ifia Sewa Asaribotre, a justice of the Court of Appeal, sitting as an additional High Court judge. The court ruled, among others, that the Attorney General had led sufficient evidence to establish a case against Forson and therefore ordered him to open his defense. Forson subsequently opened his defense and also closed his case. The third accused, Richard Jakpa, also opened his case and was last Thursday being cross-examined when he made a scandalous, malicious, baseless, and spurious allegation that the Attorney General had approached him on several occasions to skew his testimony to implicate Forson. Ladies and gentlemen, why would any credible person do such a thing? Indeed, if the Attorney General had any intention of having him skew the evidence in favor of Forson, it would not just be just for the Attorney General to continue the prosecution of Forson, but that is what the NDC wants us to believe. Ladies and gentlemen, it is no secret that the NDC ever since the commencement of Forson's prosecution has threatened rain and storm against government, the Attorney General, and any person they can find to cajole the Attorney General from discontinuing the prosecution. Pressure has come from every angle, including former President Mahama, the leadership of the minority in Parliament, the clergy, business friends of Forson, etc., etc. Indeed, former President Mahama specifically maintained the discontinuance of the ambulance trial as a condition to get members of the minority in Parliament to agree to the recent recall in Parliament, and has on several other occasions stated it as a condition precedent for the cooperation of the minority in Parliament. This pressure stems from some warped and baseless logic of the NDC that the Forson prosecution is politically motivated and its leader in Parliament should be immune from prosecution, even when the facts indicate conduct resulting in financial loss to the state. As mentioned earlier, investigations commenced as far back as 2017, making it imperative to ask at this stage, why is Forson, the only government official, being prosecuted from all other former ministers from whom statements were taken? Your guess should equally be good as mine. Clearly, the prosecution is based on the various documentation available from the participating agencies in the transaction, and this is evidenced by the court's ruling upholding that the case has been made by the Attorney General that warrants an answer from the defense. It is also worth noting that the prosecution of Ghanacelebs Forson commenced even before he became minority leader, making it worthless and nonsensical, the suggestion that he is being prosecuted because he's a minority leader in Parliament. This logic can only come from the NDC. Ladies and gentlemen, if at all, the only prosecution in this instance is the malicious and perennial dislike of the NDC towards the Attorney General since he assumed office, and the several attempts made by the NDC to stultify his work. The records are there clearly to show that right from his appointment as Attorney General, the NDC has spent one of the longest periods in our constitutional vetting system with the hope of impeaching his appointment. But the Attorney General remained resolute to their administration. You all watched the live telecast of his vetting in Parliament, and you saw what the NDC took him through. He survived the storm, and he's still our competent Attorney General. Having failed in all these endeavors, the NDC filed a motion for censure to remove Godfrey Dame from office as Attorney General soon after his appointment, but this also failed. The NDC have since his appointment held over 12 press conferences against the person of the Attorney General. What at all do the NDC want from this young man? The youngest Attorney General the country has ever produced is working in the best interest of the nation. Yet, these people will not let him rest. The latest allegation by Richard Japa, the third accused and an associate of Ghanacelebs Forson in this botched ambulance procurement transaction, is therefore only a further ploy contrived to curtail the prosecution of Forson and smear the Attorney General's integrity and reputation. But this, I can assure you, will not work. We firmly believe that public officials, regardless of social standing, must be treated equally before the law, and they should be accountable for their use of public resources. Needless to say that the law is no respecter of persons. Ladies and gentlemen, the allegations by Richard Japa that the AG has on several occasions met him in private at odd hours and in person on phone to coax him to implicate the accused person is a complete variance with the prevailing facts. In fact, it is laughable. The attempt to selectively present facts without the whole is telling of the intentions of the third accused person. For the record, it is unacceptable that Johnson Asiedu Nketia will run a commentary over the alleged tape calculated to prevent Ghanaians and discerning people as such from making their own deductions and reasoned judgment. You saw him on radio behaving like a choir master. Again, even though from the screenshots displayed, the alleged conversation is supposed to last 26 minutes, the NDC schemed to play only 60 minutes. 16 out of 26. the question is, where is the rest of the tape? Even in respect of what was played, it is apparent that there are repetitions, overlaps, incoherence, voice-over, and distortions, demonstrating that the NDC has spent these past days distorting whatever tape they played. It is no wonder that even this afternoon, we are caught in the same trap anyway. Even this afternoon, instead of commencing the press conference at 2, they had to wait till about 3 o'clock because they were still doctoring. We haven't doctored. We are presenting to you the facts as they are. Even on that doctored tape, the Attorney General never requested a witness to falsify, fabricate, or concoct any evidence or testify in the prosecution's favor. You all heard the tape. Where did the Attorney General lure the third accused person to prefer evidence against the first accused? With the load of evidence before the court, how can the Attorney General manipulate the third accused person? Indeed, if the prosecution had not made any case against Forson, the judge will not call upon them to open their defense. Let us throw those accusations in the dustbin of worthless material. Again, on the question of who initiated the meeting, even from the NDC's presentation, it is clear that if any meeting at all was called, it was mooted and initiated at the instance of the third accused person. We would like to put it on record that as of February 2022, when Ghpage requested for a meeting with the AG never met him and never made any arrangement to the Supreme Court Justice, Emmanuel Yonikolendi. It was not until the AG was invited to the residence of His Lordship Justice Emmanuel Yonikolendi in 2023 that he surprisingly met Richard Ghpage at his residence. We remain resolute and very firm in our minds that the Attorney General has never approached the accused person for any conversation, let alone request him to skew his testimony against first accused Forson. The only meeting at which the Attorney General met the third accused person was in the residence of a Supreme Court judge, His Lordship Justice Emmanuel Yonikolendi, who about 6 weeks ago requested to see the Attorney General. It is not out of place for the Attorney General to visit the said justice upon request, more so when the two were friends, even before the elevation of the latter to the Supreme Court. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, we are all lawyers, we are all trained lawyers. Standing here as a lawyer, if even a magistrate, a circuit court judge, should call me as a trained lawyer to visit him in the house to have a discussion, I will not, for any reason, say that I will not attend. But that meeting should not lead me to abuse my professional oath and pervert justice. Lawyers and judges drink from the same bowl. The judges are lawyers before they became judges. So if a judge invites me to his house, what is offensive? And this is what the NDC wants to make capital out of. They have lawyers in their midst. Would they tell me that their lawyers never visit judges? Again, the Attorney General, at the time of the invitation, was unaware that the third accused person was going to be present, and therefore his subsequent appearance in the House of the Justice was surprising. It is pertinent to note that prior to this meeting, the Attorney General had closed his case, and the court had thrown out the application of Forson for a submission of no case as being without merit. The third accused had also, by 4 different letters by his lawyers, requested and made proposals to the Attorney General for a plea bargain, which will see Big C, third accused principal, paid €2 million in exchange for the cessation of prosecution. This has been roundly rejected by the Attorney General. In fact, third accused, through his lawyers in the letter dated 16 May 2023, had indicated unequivocally that they were requesting a plea bargain, and following the rejection, I requested the AG for terms which the Attorney General will consider acceptable. The Supreme Court Judge, Justice Emmanuel Yonikolendi, therefore sought to inquire whether there was room for a plea bargain, and the AG highlighted that he was not opposed, provided it was made in proper form and assured third accused that he had nothing personally against any of the accused persons. The Attorney General further requested that since the charges principally focus on the public officials through whose actions the loss was occasioned, Richard Jakpa should show fidelity to the transaction records which were already in evidence. Finally, there is also a record that first accused himself, Forson, had in the company of a senior parliamentarian visited the AG in his house to plead with him to end the prosecution. The NDC in their press conference today have conveniently failed, refused or neglected to respond to this fact, which was also contained in the response of the Ministry of Justice following the proceedings of Thursday. Why will Forson go to the Attorney General to beg for a discontinuance of his prosecution, and the same person will, through another video, say that the Attorney General is persecuting him? You can make the inference yourself. You are the best judges. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Attorney General desired to cajole the third accused as suggested, then the best avenue will have been following the third accused person's request for the AG to propose terms acceptable to him, and the several WhatsApp messages sent to the AG pleading with him. Clearly, the third accused person is a hired mercenary contracted to exploit his relationship with the Supreme Court judge, knowing the AG's inability to disrespect the said justice when invited after failing to secure a meeting with the AG. All this is against the backdrop that since the Attorney General was appointed into office, he has been arguably one of the most successful both in and out of court. As remarkably noted by the President at the last State of the Nation's address, he has successfully saved the state over 10 trillion Ghanaian cedis, and his verve in protecting public resources is shown by his commitment to the prosecution of public officials whose acts have resulted in huge financial loss to the state. This is beside the other several infrastructure and logistical improvements to the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, including the almost completed Law House. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it is the firm belief of the NDC and Forson. If it is the firm belief of the NDC and Forson that no loss had occasioned the state from its conduct, then they should just remain faithful to our judicial system and seize these malicious orchestrations targeted at bastardizing our judicial system and to prevent him from standing trial to its final conclusion. They should just keep quiet and let the proceedings in court continue. We are very clear in our minds that the cause for the resignation of the Attorney General is misplaced, unwarranted, and this will not put any spokes in the prosecution of Forson and his associates. Ladies and gentlemen, the call for the resignation of the Attorney General coming from the NDC is very, very rich. The NDC calling on the Attorney General to resign from office. That is rich Ghanaians. The AG will not resign. He will continue to remain witty, resolute, and focused in the delivery of his work, as he does always. The wheels of justice, we say, grind slowly, but eventually it will grind to a halt. Thank you once again for coming to listen to us on such short notice. God bless our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Frank Davis. Abusuafo Madarma. Asama ya kan ya asamo a ehu hia Ghana fo yi pa. NDC for adendada atro kontompo epese omudi mfuturo gu Ghana fo ani sane ebe ya omupani a wo parliament ya bo no kwadu so wa Ghana aboka wa Ghana ahwiri sika odeni pe na namra kwan so mo tietia e Ghana mra so no omu pese omudi dede atro nkontompo eto ne so abusuafo asem ne say kona koto ambulance bra ambulance ahenu 200 ambulance asem aye kan aye Mahama cabinet approve loan na was a free Stanbic banking so and also parliament approve money adwumakuo bi e wo Dubai hyehye ho se emfa ambulance imra enhyehye ya na e wo ho ne se ansa na ambulance ne beba no yentuaka ambulance ne beduru yehwe se fata ansa na yetuaka yewra to Forson yenim nyena ono pewo saa enhyehye mu yenim nyena owom ne tuamu ne obenya firim yenim se na bibi ko ne kotoko ma ode ahopepre etro krata e de koma Bank of Ghana say Bank of Ghana enkotua nkofo ya omfa ambulance ma ye enkotua omka ampa Bank of Ghana so ekotua omka etua omka wie nya no nko o na wasa tro krata de asa kwakoma controller se controller entua a bank charges sika bank agiye a editua sa kai no ensentua over 900,000 Ghana cedis anso how ansa na krampo no actually letter na Bank of Ghana no na sabre no maami anya memfa ne kransie yi no ye minister in charge of health ne friend madam Shirley Aite na wa tro krata de kwakoma Big C campaign for your modu by also the ambulance ibaya omode ambulance ntunturo ba no what track mo say mo emfa ambulance name in fact they should not even produce mo produce ambulance no na emomu no omo twen sanse Ministry of Health kwanya sika e na contract so gusua enam parliament mu ye hu ne yekoye yakwakotua nkofu ika nkofu nso mfa ambulance imra ya omuntimi nyusi odi nipa tum kra nipa no kra bedu hospital no wawu wa bogana ka wa di Ghana dream ye de wakwa ko gina nseni bia ya bo wo kwa adu wan fa ye sika no anhye ba bi o so de hye ana wasa ma Ghana asa ahwere sika asemi wo court nyina no the attorney general nyamianum no krani o wakokudro pa wagina pintin se bema se o ma Ghana enhwiri sika akasa aba no so nkomodi aba no so achopa aba no so ni nyina no wampaba yenkotie a opani ba ko o mo efe ne japa ono no sa attorney general frefre na najo ka tre no say asem no onka ne sei attorney general anya sa da san say attorney general ordinary dance die nya na kwakodom court dada attorney general ne mramu ye kan say wo close the case wa ya wie ne krata nyina odi akọ asem no ani da ho asem no akwakọ ese no ani da ho say plain ye monche mu NDC fuwa say asem de ne keka koyi de kamia ko say aso ye minority leader ne nan aso ne nsa ntie ne betwa ntro tape a ene omoboy no ya tro tape no aye doctored ya keka siani ya twetwe bia frim Yashada Shadem, at the Abbey from Fidie, at their firm. And ya in a tantan, Yamba Tuntua Bontina, Tepa, oh, bar. Oh, Hana Snatch man, stop it. Oh, it has more than one can play, Mama, Miss A. Nadani Cheche, who's when your tape? Oh, by half in a tape, no saber running home commentary as I say. Two tape, none do baby of send him Guasiabana. Or some now, small, where ya Attorney General, some man or can, or Dilly Dino, or can say, or say, Mama, man, and goes Mama, and Guasia press conference, Benno. What's what dance here? Jaina Ghana for journalist, Majumu do, Majumu P. Now, Obia Coco fat tape you a kikambum. In fact, I was there, almost WhatsApp. Be on the chair, almost say Attorney General. Any papa ne kasa 28 minutes or 26 minutes. And yes, sir. Tape for almost boy and so no. I have 14 or 15 minutes. Tape no more boy. 16. Just like Marco, you be from the Biasham, the voice be a PM for baby. Sunset more time go for dummy. Etimuba Samuel Basa. Attorney General, Godfrey Dami, on resign or China, or because word in Attorney General. In fact, His Excellency the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia Soba, no be Attorney General, because word the Attorney General. No? Why na Juma ye pa? Na Attorney General, where we any case, where we any bibia, Bawun Kura Wusu, Attorney General Tini Baby. And a more lawyer for true crata de brain say, and part more who say some mudi for, and Nuntino Musre, near Mremu, ye freno, plea bargain, and now plea negotiation. San say, Quadu now the abomino, my men on Tenassi, near Shahon, near a cabinet me boy, ya metia. Mumma sa big C company ya or this ambulance stone tray at true crata by. Say obetua Sicano, or so obetua, me one crata in yawa. Na ever me wo jankata nyamo for me ni nyina wa ha say company ni say onu betua 2 million euros otua wi obesa ba be fa eye na nyina ko 2 million euros abusuan fon krata ni we emfree ho let us omo troba ni lawyer letterhead let us omo troba let us omo atroba ya omo ba be patch or say ampa e kanaba ye be ba be for your ambulance to ntwa na ye de ba no na ye tua 2 million euros e dia mamo e na Attorney General say there be e ye big C company no ono asema ye di wo court no onka ho bi lawyer ni be ka say big C no onye party to asem na ekoso no na obi asabi hu di asem a wonka ho bi so na no asem brew na say ne usa ko chase ni say ko peska na yefa na kwako hu no ana Attorney General say there be mo a mo ye party no say mo na mo de sa asem ne ba say mo na mo de ba dia ene obesom say benka wa ni boni a nka be ka say ye obetua 2 million euros no ma sa be fa cash na ko eti ebura na obi di wani ma o de wo ko ye wura Godfrey Dami fie a okwa patch us asem no nje mu no era to Forson wada pede na ededi no asem no ye nka o media mu ye be ka o kan law court say yo mo so mba be dwane fi law court no mo de mo nsan be to media mo boa enya adwuma ne enya adwuma kire wo bo Ghana ka go and answer where the Ghana dream go and answer. Yes, what Ghana chrono, go and answer. And you're afraid I'm about fake tape, doctored tape, manipulated tape. You can see any. If I have a message in this one, baby. Oh no, Papa Japan na air catcher. You rap Godfrey Dami say, Opeso Shia non in your meeting. And I hear a Godfrey say, Unia, and Namunia, so the mammy who Unia, see a Supreme Court judge. Ah, your friend, Justice Emmanuel Johnny Kolendi. O boss non ko de mano enti wonua enti any arrangement no meeting cross here bia no me dia fa no so o boss non ko a o ma Supreme Court judge ntia and the NDC for adani asem nani say you were Godfrey Dami na person arrange meeting for what said there no benya free mu okuta onwa na dance die a emodu abusuafo mesre ensamo a NDC for de betu dwa ene no eni nyina so bia eni nyina so baako sei eti asem ne die yewra ato Forson mesre asem ewo ho a wo so kwansa wo court enye sa antro we na mo de be fa go fedan ma me wie a me ka sei me Attorney General for ye hu oma ba mo ho ba kwa Godfrey Dame for me is the best Attorney General Ghana yenya no young man abrantia oye na juma kama o wani die wo buo de mo bia wa hyeda sua juma no no mbe so mo say no NDC for muntie on resign o china obekoswa ya na Attorney General no ya na juma sene fata mo doctored mo fake tape ne makekansi ani ene mama ye ni nya no enkosi ba bia obekoswa ya na juma ye be hia wo court ne akan asem no wo court enye media mu ne ye beka abusuafo nyame hira mo